Hare Krishna. Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Om Jnanatimirandhasya Jnananjanachadakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupaha Kada Mayam Dadati Sapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guroho Shri Yuta Padagamadam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sattam Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitam He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrinda Vaneshwari Vishvanusute Devi Pranamami Haripriye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyeva Cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Rama Rama Hare Hare Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishthaya Bhutale Shrivaradhanath Samnamne Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishthaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gaurvani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Mukam Karoti Vachanam Pangam Langayate Girim Yat Kripatamaham Vande Shri Gurum Dintaranam Paramananda Madhavam Shri Chaitanya Ishwaram Hari Om Hare Krishna. So we are very fortunate to be able to continue the discussion on the beautiful pastimes of Lord Chaitanya, the most munificent form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who comes once in a day of Brahma to this earth planet to give very, very special kripa to all living entities so that they can get access to the highest of the highest attainments in the easiest possible way. And we are recipients of that particular mercy of the Lord in terms of at least the opportunity and entrance into that means by which we can actually achieve that goal and achieve that mercy. So our gratitude to Gaur Nitai, the Panchatattva, all our Acharyas, to Srila Prabhupada and all the Vaishnavas who are helping us to access that mercy and grow towards that ultimate goal of life, which is Krishna Prem. So we are in the process of discussing the 17th chapter, the last chapter of Chaitanya Charitamrita Adi Leela. As I had mentioned a couple of classes ago, that the chapter itself is over 300 verses and it is full of so many pastimes, so many pastimes, so many pastimes. It is practically impossible to rush through this particular chapter. Otherwise, it will be very unfair. I mean, I can do it, but then we will miss the opportunity to discuss about so many wonderful pastimes which have been very briefly hinted at in this particular chapter, for the reason that we have mentioned so many times, which is that those pastimes have been discussed in detail either in Chaitanya Bhagavat or in Chaitanya Mangal. So today we'll progress. This is the part 3 of chapter 17. In case you do not remember, this chapter is entitled The Youthful Pastimes of Lord Chaitanya. Anybody remembers what is that youth period? We discussed Balya, Pauganda, Kaishora, and youth, Yauvan.
Is it 11 to
Sorry, Amit Prabhu, I cannot hear you very well.
is it 11 to
11 to
15?
youth? No, not youth. That is Kaishora. Kaishore is 11 to 15. Yauvan is
15 to 24.
16 to 24. So from the age of 16 to the age which up to the time when he, of course, the Lord continued to be even young otherwise, but the youthful pastimes that are mentioned here in Adi Lila go up to the age of 24, because it was at the age of 24 that the Lord took sannyas. And that's where the Adi Lila ends. So the youthful pastimes from the Adi Lila cover the ages of 16 to around 20. Kaishore is around 11 to 15. Pauganda is around 6 to 10. And Balya is up to 5. Yeah. And that is the general case for most individuals. I mean, not these numbers do not apply specifically to the Lord. This is true for all human beings like us. So we have reached around up to verse 17 out of the 300 odd verses after doing 2 parts. But I hope you are enjoying the discussion of these beautiful pastimes. So the verse 18 itself, which is a brief line, says, after this incident, the Lord remained in an ecstatic position for 21 hours, and all the devotees saw his specific pastimes. That one statement itself is a very elaborate pastime. That particular pastime is known as the Sapta Prahariya Lila. This is a very, very special pastime. So I thought that it is best we honor the Lord and the devotees by briefly discussing this pastime. So as I always promise, I will try to be brief. This pastime is very, very sweet. So as I had mentioned, even in the last class, Lord Chaitanya, he manifested his pastimes as a devotee. He would associate with all the devotees in and around Mayapur, Navadvip area, especially those who were in this group of Advaitacharya and others. Advaitacharya, Srivas Thakur, Chandrasekharacharya, Mukunda Datta, Haridas Thakur, so many others, so many. And these names will come as we discuss the pastimes more and more. Lord Chaitanya was very careful that he displayed himself or positioned himself always as a servant of Krishna. Of course, very intimate associates like Advaitacharya, as I mentioned, recognized the divinity of the Lord, and sometimes even though the Lord Chaitanya was so careful, if somebody would say that you are Krishna, he would close his ears and say, Vishnu, Vishnu, Vishnu. It's a big offense to call any living entity Krishna. So he would protest very strongly to set the right example. So that's the example for us. So, comparing somebody to God is not flattery, it is blasphemy. So Mahaprabhu would always say it is blasphemy. So he would close his ears. But time to time, just to give pleasure to his devotees, not because he wanted, just to give pleasure to his devotees, at certain private moments, like what we are just about to discuss, the Lord would reveal his glories in private, surrounded by very close associates, because the devotees so very much enjoy seeing the Lord as the opulent enjoyer. I was listening to one class by Zonath Radhanath Maharaj. Was it today morning or was it yesterday? I do not remember. So very beautiful, this very, very beautiful verse. Bhuktaram yagya tapasam sarvaloka maheshwaram. Suradam sarvadehinam gyatva mam shanti. That a living entity truly becomes happy and peaceful when he understands that the Lord is the supreme enjoyer, supreme controller, and supreme well-wisher. As long as we do not come to that recognition, we will always be frustrated. And that's why the devotees always want to see the Lord always in that position. So it so happened one day in the house of Srivas, and there are so many details to this pastime, but I'm just going to cover a few. The Lord came into the house of Srivas and he was in a very different mood that particular day. He did something very interesting. He went into the altar of Srivas. And typically in most altars, there will be, like a simhasan, an asan, on which Brahmanas will generally worship Shaligram Shilas. Even up to this day. At least that is customary. Nowadays, I don't know how many do it, but it is customary. So there was a tray full of Shaligram Shilas, which was placed on the throne of Vishnu, a beautiful throne. I'm assuming it's like a wooden platform, designed like a throne. So very interesting that Lord Chaitanya went straight to that Singhasan. He lifted from the Singhasan this tray, which was full of Shaligram Shilas. I do not know whether how many Shilas were there, but he lifted that. And the Lord himself sat on the throne of Vishnu. And he placed all the Shaligram Shilas on his lap. And he suddenly assumed, of course, he continued to maintain his form as Lord Chaitanya, but he suddenly adopted the mood, sitting on the throne of Vishnu, of the Lord. And then he said something very interesting to the devotees like Srivas and others who were gathered there. He said, sing the bathing song. Sing the Abhishek song. So everyone got the hint. When the Lord is saying sing the Abhishek song means, what does it mean? Means do the Abhishek. So the devotees immediately got the hint. They were all suddenly got excited because rarely the Lord would come into this mood. They all suddenly got excited. They ran to the Ganges with pots and they started filling pots of Ganges water and rushing back to the house of Srivas, and the Lord sitting on this throne of Vishnu. They started bathing the Lord as they were singing beautiful, beautiful prayers. Generally, when we say bathing song, typically the Vedic Shastras say that when the Lord's Abhishek is to be done, especially songs like the Purusha Sukta should be recited. So the Purusha Sukta prayers and perhaps some other prayers were also recited. Tad Vishnoho Paramam Padam Sada Pashyanti Suraya Hariva Chakshura. So many beautiful prayers were being recited. And devotees, after having done the bathing, because the Lord's worship begins with bathing. So when the Lord says bathe, that means you don't stop by bathing. You don't just put a water on the Lord and then go and say, bye bye, Lord. We are going. Worship is done. So the Vedic sequence is you begin with bathing, then you dress and decorate the Lord, you offer Naivedya and Arati. Then if there are any prayers, they can be offered. So that is the typical sequence or the process in which the Lord is worshipped. So the devotees were not only bathing with so much Ganges water, they were pouring and pouring and pouring. Not only they bathed, they also offered lots of pots of Ganges water to the Lord. And so amazing that the Lord would drink the Ganges water. Because the Lord was in such an ecstatic mood. He was drinking it like as if it was nectar. He went on drinking pots and pots and pots. They said devotees couldn't even count. Then when they saw the Lord drinking so much Ganges, so they started also bringing bananas and fruits. And the Lord started accepting and eating tons and tons of bananas sitting on the throne of Vishnu. Very amazing. The Lord suddenly was in a mood like he was in the Annakut, where Krishna, in the form of Govardhan, was accepting all the offerings that the residents of Vrindavan were making. He was accepting, eating all the bananas, and then the devotees got excited. Many of them got into the kitchen, started cooking various offerings. They would bring pots of sweet rice and so many wonderful preparations for the Lord. The Lord was accepting and eating them one after another, after another, after another, endlessly. They were so happy that they were able to serve the Lord in this way, that the Lord was unrestrictedly accepting all their offerings of love. They dressed the Lord with nice, beautiful clothes after the bathing. They put nice sandalwood pulp. They put nice jewels and ornaments on him. And the Lord was looking so very wonderful, so very effulgent. And they started offering various Aarti paraphernalia, singing beautiful, beautiful songs. After this, the Lord came in a mood where he was calling out one after another for various of the devotees who had gathered. And with various devotees, he was granting them various special blessings. Now, this topic itself is a very detailed discussion. I think I should not go into that. Otherwise, this class will be only the Saptaprahariya Leela. This Leela is known as Saptaprahariya because it lasted for 7 praharas. Each prahar is approximately 3 hours. So Saptaprahariya means this pastime lasted for 21 hours. 21 hours the Lord was accepting worship and calling various devotees and giving them various blessings and fulfilling their heart's desire. The Lord was calling many devotees one after another, and he was revealing to them how in the past at various points in their life he had personally intervened to save them from various difficult situations in their own life. For example, he did so for Gangadas Pandit, who was his teacher. He reminded him of a pastime when once the Muslims had attacked his village and he was running away on a very stormy, dark night with his wife and children and daughters. And he was so worried that the Muslim soldiers will not just loot him, but they will rape and murder his wife and daughters, that he was running out of fear. And he finally came to the bank of the Ganges on that storming night, hoping to run away by crossing the Ganges. But how could he find any boatman at that time in that stormy night to take him to the other side? But to his surprise, suddenly a boatman appeared. And he pleaded to the boatman, and the boatman said, "Yes, come here, come on board, and I will take you across." And Lord Chaitanya told Gangadas Pandit, "Do you remember that? Do you remember that night? Gangadas, today I want to tell you that boatman was actually me. Because you are so helplessly calling out my holy names, I took the form. I descended from the spiritual world. I took the form of that boatman and I came to save you and your family. Gangadas was so overwhelmed that the Lord had performed this wonderful task of delivering him by taking such a humble position as of that of becoming a boatman for him. So the Lord, of course, the Lord could have arranged somebody else to save, but the Lord takes pleasure personally delivering his devotees. Yoga Kshemam Vahamyaham. Very interesting. When it comes to his very close, dear devotees, the Lord takes great pleasure rather than delegating the task, takes pleasure in doing it himself. That's his enjoyment. So he explains that, and Gangadas Pandit is so happy and he gives him so many blessings. Like that, the Lord calls one after another so many devotees. And he asks them, what is it that your heart wants? And many devotees would come and ask for various things. Some people would say, oh, give me Krishna Prem. And the Lord would say, okay, I bless you with Krishna Prem. Some devotees would come and say, oh, I'm struggling at home because my wife is not a devotee. Make my wife a devotee. The Lord would say, so be it. Some would say, oh, my parents are not devotees. They are not allowing me to join the kirtan. Lord would say, okay, so be it. Your parents will cooperate and they will also become devotees. So like that, different devotees had different desires. The Lord was just asking the devotees to open their heart and ask for whatever, and he was wonderfully reciprocating with all of them. So there are many, many episodes like this. So we don't have time to go through all of it. But I think one needs to be mentioned, which is very special. So I think I'll take a few minutes to mention that. And that is of a great devotee by the name of Sridhar. Actually, there's one more which is very important and worth mentioning, but we will talk about it later, which is that of Mukunda Datta. Anyway, so these pastimes are not mentioned in Chaitanya Charitamrita. They are from Chaitanya Bhagavat. So at one point in this Saptaprahariya Leela, which is also very popularly known as Mahaprakash Leela. Mahaprakash, where the Lord manifested his opulence in a very grand way. Mahaprakash. So that's the very popular word, and the other word is the Saptaprahariya Leela. The Leela which lasted for 7 praharas. At one point, the Lord suddenly started saying, call Sridhar, call Sridhar. And all the devotees who were gathered there, they were looking around, trying to locate who's this Sridhar. And nobody knew who is this devotee Sridhar. They were all looking around, looking at each other. Said, oh Lord, there is no Sridhar here. No, go and get him. Devotee said, yes, my Lord, we can go and get him, but who is he? Please tell us, where can we find him? We have not heard about, we know all your devotees, but we don't know this Sridhar. So the Lord said, he's staying in a small hut on the bank of the Ganges. And he's always chanting with great attention and feeling my holy names. You go there and you will hear him feelingly chant the holy names. Go and bring him here. So actually this character is Sridhar, who was popularly known as Sridhar Kholavecha. Kholavecha means the banana leaf seller. Khola means making banana leaf cups. He was an expert in making, the leaf cups, leaf plates. He would sell all kinds of banana items. He had a few banana trees. He had a he was an extremely poor Brahmana. Very, very pure-hearted, very self-satisfied. He just had a few banana trees, and from the banana trees, whatever he could produce, Mainly from the leaves, he would make leaf plates, leaf cups. He would also sell some banana flowers, even some bananas. So everything to do with bananas was a specialty. So he would set up a very simple shop. Actually, not a shop proper, but he would just sit by the side of the Ganges and spread his items in front of him and try to sell. And it is said that he would sell it at the least possible price because he was not interested in business. He just wanted to do whatever is basic necessary to maintain his body and soul together. Just what is basic necessary. So his price was almost like the cheapest in the market. So he would do that. And whatever little money that he would get out of that, how much can you earn by selling banana leaf cups and plates? Whatever little money he would make, it is said every day, half of that money, Sridhar Kholavech would spend on worshipping Mother Ganga. He was a great devotee of Mother Ganga because he knew that Mother Ganga emanates from the lotus feet of the Lord. Every day he would worship. Whatever little money, 50%, he would buy various paraphernalia and he would worship Mother Ganga. And with the remaining 50%, he would just use it for his maintenance. And he was very happy. Never worked on improving his material condition. So Lord Chaitanya, and throughout the evening and the night, Sridhar Kholavech would be singing the holy names of the Lord in a very, very, very feeling way. He would literally be crying. And at night, the surrounding people, because he was staying in a very dilapidated hut, surrounding people would be disturbed by his singing. So we are trying to sleep. Why he's singing? And because he was crying and singing, they were thinking he's crying out of hunger because he's so poor that he has nothing to eat. So they would be so irritated. They are sleeping, he's chanting. Actually, he has no devotion. He's just a pakhandi. Huh? So they would take a vegetable or some fruit and throw it at him and say, "Here, eat this and keep quiet." Huh? But he was so humble. He was so tolerant. He would never take offenses. He would just continue. Very feelingly calling out to the Lord. So he was a perfect example of Trinadapi Sunichena, Tarorapi Sahishnuna, more tolerant than a tree, more humbler than a blade of grass, giving all respects to others and not expecting any respect in return. So this Sridhar Kholavech is a very, very, very extraordinary. Another interesting thing was he was so humble. And he was not a prominent person. So that's why practically none of the devotees even knew about his existence. Except for Lord Chaitanya. Because he's the Supreme Personality of God. He knows exactly what is in our heart. See, yeah, this is one thing. We can never cheat the Lord, no matter how much show we put up. We can make a show of devotion and create a wonderful image in the eyes of the devotees around us. We can sometimes even deceive our seniors and even sometimes mislead our spiritual teachers and spiritual masters. Krishna knows exactly the content of our hearts. We cannot progress in devotion through cheating. Because in due course, everything will be exposed. So Lord Chaitanya, knowing the extraordinarily pure quality of the heart of Sridhar Kholavecha, because Sridhar would never come in the front, meet Lord Chaitanya and to associate with the other devotees. Lord Chaitanya every day would go to the shop of Sridhar Kholavecha. He would leave all other shops and go to the shop of Sridhar Kholavecha to buy bananas, leaf cups. Now, this would be a very interesting episode. It is said every day when the Lord would go to the shop of Sridhar Kholavecha, And he would ask, "Oh Sridhar, how much are you giving this banana leaf cup for?" And Sridhar would quote some price for so much, so much, so much. In those days, whatever the currency was. And Lord Chaitanya said, "So much. You are charging so much. This is so expensive." I would say, "No, this is not expensive. My price is lower than all the other shops." He says, "No, you are cheating. You are charging too much." So the Lord would actually have fun by having these kind of sweet interactions. So it is said the Lord would haggle on the price of the leaf cups, on the bananas. And this haggling and this kind of to and fro arguments, it is said it would go on for hours. And he would say, "Why you are being so greedy?" I say, "No, no, I am not being greedy. I just need little bit money and I am going to worship the Ganges with it. And, I am, the rest I just need to maintain myself. I am not being greedy." Huh? And Lord Chaitanya would tell him that, "Oh, you're pretending to be a poor man. I know. You are actually a very rich man. You are hiding your treasure." "I am not rich. I'm very poor. I'm telling you really. No, I know you are very, very rich. You have great wealth which you have hidden from the world." Actually, Lord Chaitanya was referring to the wealth of prema, which is the real wealth. So he would tease him like that. And he said that, "Oh, why you want to worship Ganges? Instead, you should worship me." And Lord Chaitanya would say like that. "Don't you know that the Ganges is also my servant and she is, my devotee?" And Sridhar would, not recognizing, because Sridhar was actually much elder in age to Lord Chaitanya. Lord Chaitanya was a youthful boy. Say, "Oh, Vishnu, Vishnu, what is this you are saying? You're a Brahmana, you should not speak like this. This is very offensive. How can you speak like this?" So like that, not knowing the identity of the Lord, Sridhar and Vishwambhar, Gauranga, every day would have very sweet interactions. And unknown to Sridhar, because Sridhar did not know that Lord Chaitanya is actually the worshipable object of his heart. But he would get such great pleasure every day in interacting and having this duel of words with this young, beautiful Gauranga. Can you imagine every day Lord Chaitanya coming and spending a couple of hours with him, unasked for, and continuously debating with him and having sweet interactions? And he would feel so happy, so blissful, as if he's seeing Krishna and talking to Krishna. So every day he would be hankering and waiting for this Vishwambhar to come. And the interesting thing was, at the end of the conversation, the Lord would haggle to such a point that the Lord would finally say to Sridhar, "Oh, you are cheating, you are asking too much price. I am just going to take all of these bananas for free." He would just pick up the bananas and start walking away. And say, "No, no, you cannot do like this. You have to pay me the price. Otherwise, how will I live?" So very, very sweet interactions like this. So this is the background. This had already happened earlier. So nobody knew about this Sridhar Kolavecha except the Lord himself. So the Lord told, "Go to this place and you find him and you bring." And they came to this particular place and they saw this devotee. And he asked him, "Are you Sridhar that the Lord is asking for you? Are you Sridhar the banana seller?" "Yes." So they brought him in front of Lord Chaitanya, and Lord Chaitanya was so happy. And that time the Lord revealed to him that he is the worshipable Lord of his life, that he is Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, for whom he has always been praying. And, such great blessings he got, and the Lord fulfilled his heart's desire. In fact, the Lord asked him, "What is it that you want? Ask for any blessing." You want the kingdom of Vaikuntha? You want unparalleled opulence, mystic powers, liberation, anything, just ask and I will give it to you. I'm so pleased. So Sridhar very humbly said, "Oh Lord, I don't want anything. If you really want to give me, I just want one thing to ask, and that is that I wish that you in your form as Lord Vishwambhar every day continue to come to my shop. Give me your darshan and continue to haggle in this sweet way for the price of bananas. And let this go on for all eternity. That's all I want. Because that is the greatest pleasure and treasure of my life. I don't want anything else." So that is what devotees are ultimately hankering for. They are hankering for the rasa of direct devotional interaction with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And the Lord was so happy to hear this request of Sridhar Khulavich. So through these interactions, through these prayers, through these leelas, the hearts of devotees and how attached they were to selfless service of the Lord is also being revealed one after another. Actually, there is one pastime of Sridhar Khulavich, which I did not mention, which is that he used to use one pot. There's a small metal pot that he had, like a lota, which was so old that it was dented in 1,000 places. And that was the only lota that he had, which he used for practically everything, for washing himself, for drinking water, for practically everything he was using that lota. And Lord Chaitanya, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, snatched that lota from him having water, and he drank that water, saying that this is the supreme nectar that I'm hankering for. And he was so embarrassed and ashamed that the Lord is drinking from such an impure vessel, but the Lord considers it as his greatest fortune. The Lord considers the remnants of his pure devotees as very desirable. Very interesting. As Ramchandra, he had the berries which Shabari gave. Even in Krishna Lila, he would love to eat the offerings. He would even take out from the mouth of his Gopa friends and he would snatch and eat it. The Lord loves to have very intimate, affectionate dealings with his pure devotees. And devotees, for them, this is their life and soul. Nothing else they desire. All the wealth of Vaikuntha or the material world or Siddhis, Mukti, everything is very insignificant as compared to this. That is why pure devotees never hanker or even ask the Lord for any of this. So in that way, Sridhar received such wonderful blessings. I'll not go into the pastime of Mukunda because that will take more time. We are already at 9:38 and we have not yet completed verse 1 for today. So many such personalities came, and I'm not going to go into those details for today. Maybe on another day we can discuss. So this kind of pastimes went on. The Lord actually gave very special darshans also to various devotees. So all that is described. So this Leela is very, very special. And is one of those rare occasions that the Lord manifested his opulence so wonderfully and gave so many blessings. Going ahead, it is also mentioned that in a similar mood on another day, Lord Chaitanya, the Lord Chaitanya, as I mentioned, would sometimes get into the mood of a specific incarnation of the Lord. One day, suddenly the Lord went into the mood of Varahadev. Suddenly, he would go into that bhav. So that bhav means he would suddenly feel as that I am Varaha. So he felt such ecstasy of being Varahadev. It is said he got up on the shoulders of Murari Gupta, one of his associates, one of the devotees. And he was jumping and dancing as Varaha. It is said that Murari Gupta gave him a small pot of water to resemble the earth, and the Lord carried it with him as if he was Varaha lifting the earth with his tusks. And the Lord was dancing in the courtyard of Murari Gupta. Like this, the Lord manifested his mood of different incarnations. Sometimes he would assume the mood of Narasimha, sometimes he would assume the mood of Ramchandra, sometimes he would assume the mood of Lord Shiva, like we mentioned in the last class. One Shaivite devotee came and he got into the mood of Shiva. He also jumped on his shoulder and was dancing on his shoulders for a long time. There was another incident which Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami mentions, where another very pure-hearted devotee, a brahmachari by the name of Shuklambar Brahmachari, he approached the Lord. The Shuklambar Brahmachari, like Sridhar Kholavich, was also very simple and very poor by material considerations. He was carrying a small bag, carrying some raw rice, which probably he had got as madhukari. So he's probably gone to a few homes and begged for some rice. And as I just mentioned a couple of minutes ago, the Lord is always very eager to eat the remnants of his devotee. Remember when Krishna Lila, Sudama went to the house of Krishna, actually the palace of Krishna in Dwarka. He was carrying some chipped rice in a small cloth bag, but he was so hesitant to share it with the Lord because it was not only simple, but it had also become perhaps dirty and unclean, having traveled so far. But the Lord snatched that bag from him and took that chipped rice and put it into his mouth. So the Lord is always hungry to taste the offerings of his devotees. Similarly, in this case, the Lord snatched the bag of rice, raw rice. This is not even cooked rice, raw rice from Shuklamba Brahmachari, and he started putting it in his mouth. One morsel. Nobody stopped him. Everybody was looking what the Lord is doing, but nobody stopped the Lord. He continued, and he completely ate all the raw rice with great pleasure. So this is a very sweet pastime. So after eating the rice, it is said Lord Chaitanya gave a very beautiful purport on a very, very famous verse. There is a very special verse which I am sure all of you have heard, and that verse is known as the Harer Nama Shloka. It is from the Brihan Naradiya Puran. Very famous verse. Anybody knows that verse from the Brihan Naradiya Puran, which we quote so often in our classes about the holy
Nama Hare Nama Maiva Kevalam Krishna Kalau Nasti Kalau Nasti.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you. Harer Nama Eva Kevalam Kalau Nastaiva 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 Jatir Annaka. This is a very, very important verse, and we use this so often when we speak about the glories of the holy name, and as holy name as the one and only exclusive process for attaining spiritual perfection in Kali Yuga. This verse is from the Brihan Naradiya Purana. And Lord Chaitanya, because Lord Chaitanya especially commented on this verse and explained it in great detail, and that is what we are just about to discuss, we consider this verse very, very important. Because Lord Chaitanya used this particular verse from the Brihan Naradiya Puran as the proof that the holy name is the necessary, sufficient, and only process for attaining spiritual perfection in Kali Yuga. So the Lord spoke like this. So I'm going to briefly summarize what the Lord explained in his purport. So of course, the translation of the verse goes like this. The translation of the verse is, in this age of Kali, there is no other means for self-realization than chanting the holy name, chanting the holy name, chanting the holy name of Lord Hari. So 3 times it is repeated, no other means. And 3 times it is repeated, chanting the holy name, chanting the holy name, chanting the holy name. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu starts by explaining that in this age of Kali, Kali Kale Nama Rupe Krishna Avata. That in the age of Kali, Krishna incarnates in the form of the holy name, which means Krishna and Krishna's name are not different. Nama Namino Abhinnatvam. In the material world, we cannot quench our thirst by chanting water, 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 water. But in the spiritual realm, the name and the person is not different. One can access the person through the name. So when we chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, when we chant it with the right consciousness, we can actually access and connect the Supreme Personality of Godhead. One directly associates, Mahaprabhu says, with the Lord. Anybody who chants the holy name like this is certainly delivered. And this verse, Lord Chaitanya says, has the word Eva 3 times. Harer Nama, Harer Nama, Harer Nama. Eva Kevalam. Kalau Nasti Eva, Nasti Eva, Nasti Eva. Gatir Anyatha. So Eva is repeated 3 times, and Harer Nama is also repeated three times. And the Lord says, why it is done so? This is done so deliberately to make the common people understand. Why? Because most common people, if you tell somebody once, they don't take it so seriously. But if you repeat the same thing twice, they think, oh, this is serious. But if you repeat something 3 times to the person, then they take it very seriously. And they think, oh, this must be something very important. For example, I want to tell somebody, you make sure you do it. So yes. Do you hear what I said? You have to make sure you do it. Yeah, I'll do it. Make sure you do this. What is this? This must be something very, very serious. So importance or emphasis is placed by repetition. So 3 times both Harer Nama to emphasize only the holy name, only the holy name, only the holy name. Eva. Eva means alone. And also Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says the word Kevala is used. Harer Nama Eva Kevalam. The word Kevala is used in that verse. Kevala means exclusively, only. Why this word Kevala is used? Lord Chaitanya says that means the holy name of the Lord alone is sufficient and no other process is needed. In fact, all other processes are prohibited in Kali Yuga. Jnana, yoga, karma are rejected as methods of self-realization. Harer Nama Eva Kevalam. Keval. No need and don't adopt any other process. In fact, one who adopts any other process in Kali Yuga cannot be delivered. And that is why Nasti Eva, Nasti Eva, Nasti Eva is also repeated 3 times, which emphasizes that the real process of self-realization is chanting the holy names, chanting the holy names, chanting the holy names. Then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu continues to explain this verse further by saying that to have the desired effect, of the holy name, to deliver one truly, that there is a quality as to how the holy name should be chanted. Some people think that chanting the holy name simply means just uttering a sound. Some people go to such an extreme that they say, can I just do one thing? Can I just record and play the sound and then I will go and do my work? Are Baba, the sound is not for the tape recorder to hear. The sound is for you to chant and hear. So sadhana cannot be outsourced, either to machine or to somebody else. Sadhana is personal. Some people have invented robots to do arati at home because they don't have time. What is the use of this kind of archana? Puja archana is about absorbing your consciousness and offering something. The Lord is not in need of your worship. It's not like a tax department that you have to give the tax and doesn't matter whether you pay or somebody else pays. So there is a quality to chanting the holy name, and the Lord continues to speak about this topic, and he says that because the holy name is so powerful, you should always chant the holy name, but you can always chant the holy name only if you are humbler than a blade of grass in the street, more tolerant than a tree, not expecting any respect from anybody and giving all respect to others. Forbearance like a tree. What does forbearance like a tree means? A tree, even though it is cut down, doesn't protest and it continues to give shade to everybody. The grass, even when trampled upon, does not protest. No retaliation, no protest. The tree may dry, but it doesn't ask for water. Similarly, a Vaishnava, Mahaprabhu says, should not ask anything from anyone else. If someone gives him something without asking, then he can accept it. But the Vaishnava is never hankering or working towards material benefit. He should be satisfied to eat and live according to whatever things are easily available and are arranged by the Lord for him. Whatever vegetables, fruits are easily available. A Vaishnava doesn't do atyahara or prayas, doesn't over accumulate or does not do too much effort for material endeavor. Just like we now discussed the pastime of Sridhar Kholavicha. He was working, but he would do just enough to maintain himself. He was not planning, now I will have a small shop, and after some time, I will make profit. Then, I will set up a nice big shop, the cover. Then, I will open a franchise of banana. Everything bananas by Sridhar Kholavich, my new brand. Then I will go on Facebook and advertise. Then I will have so many franchise, and on every bank of the Ganges, 100 meters apart on every side will be my banana shops. Then I will become billionaire. No, these kind of dreams. It's very simple. Just do my duties, sell my banana leaf, get a little bit money, worship Mother Ganges, maintain myself. The rest of my time, I just want to serve and chant Hare Krishna and be absorbed. Why should I distract myself? So the principle is, for a devotee, Mahaprabhu says that if you want to make proper progress, don't be distracted by too much of material effort and material work. Remain self-satisfied. So Mahaprabhu says one should strictly follow the principle of always chanting the holy name, and one should be satisfied with whatever one gets easily. If one follows these two principles, one can remain fixed in devotional service very nicely, solidly. One can remain fixed. And then the Lord quotes this verse, Trinadapi sunichena tarorapi sahishnuna amanina manadena kirtaniya sada hari. Then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, he raises his hand and he says, raising my hands, I am declaring, everyone please hear me. Lord Chaitanya says, that means very serious instruction the Lord is giving. Everyone hear me. He says, this verse that I just mentioned, Trinadapi Sunichena Tarorapi Sahishna Amanina Manadena Kirtaniya Sadahari. String this verse on the thread of the holy name and always wear it around your neck. So you continuously remember this verse. This verse is so important because it is so central to your spiritual advancement. It is so important. String it on the thread of the holy name and wear it around your neck. Essentially, that means you should never forget this and you should always chant the holy name in this mood. Because if we chant without this mood, then the holy name will take a long time to purify us, which is actually the case with most of us. The holy name is so powerful, but why we are not seeing that impact so clearly in our life? It is because we are not displaying that quality in the chanting of the holy name. That's why the name is not manifesting its potency to the full extent. So one must strictly follow the principles that Lord Chaitanya has given. Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami says, if one simply follows this formula that the Lord has given, chant the holy name in this mood, and one follows the instructions of the regulative principles as given by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and the Goswamis, certainly one will achieve the goal of life, which is the lotus feet of Krishna. So the process is not difficult. We don't have to follow some very complicated process to go back to God. The process is simple, but it is so simple that it requires a very pure and humble heart, very selfless heart. And that is where the difficulty is. It is not complex, but it is not easy. Because simplicity is not easy. Being simple means simple in the heart. We may try to become simple externally, which is also good, but ultimately inner simplicity is very, very important. So Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami re-emphasizes that he who simply follows in the footsteps of Lord Chaitanya and the Goswamis as has been just taught will achieve the goal of life. So I'm going to stop here today because the next verse is starting a new pastime. So that will take some time to cover, and I don't want to go too much extra into the time. So I'm stopping at verse 33. The next class, we will continue from verse 34. So we have barely completed 1/10 of the chapter after 3 parts. Anyway, I hope you are enjoying the discussions. Please give me your feedback. I don't know whether I'm just ranting and boring all of you with my blabbering.
It's very interesting, Professor.
Thank you.
Yes, Prabhuji, very interesting.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Any questions? Any other comments? Yeah. Siniji, you have a question?
May I ask, you said to have the simple mind, right? This Sranada Vesani Jana, this mindset. I mean, how can we consciously cultivate that mindset? Sometimes we always used to have some, it's very easy to slip from that, isn't it?
So 4 things we have to cultivate. Initially, we may not feel that way, but there are 4 things which are to be cultivated. Humility means, what does humility means? Not considering oneself very important or very great. Considering oneself very insignificant. The thing is, that is the truth, because whatever we have, even if we have something extraordinary, the devotee always understands that everything is coming from the Lord and it is a very, very small speck of the Lord's glory. So a devotee doesn't become proud. He understands his insignificance. So we must be conscious of our insignificance always, and we have to keep reminding ourselves. And we have to be tolerant. A proud person is one, if somebody says something or does something which is not according to his expectation, then he gets offended and retaliates. So a devotee doesn't retaliate, he tolerates. Doesn't think, oh, I'm a senior devotee, I'm an important person. Why they gave garland to him? Why they didn't give garland to me? Why they respected him? Why they... I mean, these are very small things, but sometimes we may get upset even by such things. But even bigger things in terms of a direct insult or offense, also the devotee doesn't retaliate. Of course, this doesn't mean the devotee subjects himself to undignified treatment. If indeed somebody is being very offensive, the devotee may choose to quietly walk away from there rather than engage in a argument and fight and create an ugly scene. A devotee may just humbly choose to disengage in certain situations. A devotee must be tolerant, and a devotee must always be giving others respect and not expecting respect from others. Not expecting. So sometimes we may expect, and we may think we are right in expecting. For example, if one is a spiritual teacher, then the students of the spiritual teacher, whenever they see the teacher, they are actually supposed to offer pranams, respects, ideally a dandavat pranam. But a devotee is not supposed to expect it. Oh, why he didn't do this? He didn't offer me respects. I am his teacher, why he didn't do this? So devotee is not disturbed. He doesn't demand respect. Rather, he gives everybody else respect. He glorifies others. So these are practical principles which we should try to observe in all our dealings. Not just with devotees, but with all living entities. Especially with devotees, but not limited to devotees. Sometimes devotees become a bit proud, thinking, oh, I am a devotee. All these are materialistic. I am so great. And then one develops a condescending, offensive attitude towards people in general. People in society, people even in the family. One starts becoming rude, disrespectful, acts in a proud way. You all are materialistic. Karmis, I am devotee. So all these mentality, actions, words are actually counterproductive to the advancement in devotion to Krishna and counterproductive to the cultivation of the holy name. So one must be very careful to try to develop these qualities by observing these principles. Having said that, I also want to mention one more thing, that ultimately these qualities will develop in our personality very nicely and wonderfully when we continue very seriously, sincerely, and selflessly to follow the process of sadhana. Because this is not just about acting, it's not just acting humble. Sometimes devotees get into this only acting humble. Inside it's not changing only after 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. And as soon as Prabhuji goes, hey, you know that what he was doing that day, all this, is not going to be very helpful to us. So genuine imbibing of these qualities comes through a purification of heart, which comes through very sincere, diligent practice of sadhana. When the heart is purified, humility and tolerance, all these virtues will develop in our heart in a real sense, in a tangible sense. So both aspects are important. While these virtues have not yet developed in its true sense, we still have to act like that, show that we are keen to develop those qualities, and Krishna will then be pleased with that endeavor and bless us that these qualities develop. But ultimately, we have to understand all these qualities develop through good sadhana, which will lead to, and humble service, which will lead to Guru, Krishna, and the Vaishnavas being pleased, and with their blessings, we can actually come to this kind of platform. Yeah, did I answer your question? Yeah. So many of us are actually doing the external practices, but the important thing to recognize is advancement in Krishna consciousness is not just about an external practice, but it is an exercise in consciousness, where we have to make an endeavor to refine and train our consciousness in a particular way. And that is at the very core of our spiritual practice. With what motivation, with what mentality, with what attitude we are executing the various limbs of bhakti.
Okay. Thank you. Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna. Anything else? Okay. So, So by the way, tomorrow is Vasanta Panchami festival. It is springtime. So Vasanta Panchami is very special. It's also Saraswati Puja on Vasanta Panchami. So it's a very special, auspicious day. Krishna also loves this day. The deities are often dressed in yellow on this day. So it's very nice. Tomorrow is also the very auspicious celebration of the Vyas Puja ceremony for His Holiness Bhakti Vigna Vinasha Narasimha Maharaj. Celebration in Melaka. So some of us are going. So for those who are in Kuala Lumpur around, if it is possible for you to join, then you can join. Also recently we had a wonderful association of His Holiness Bhakti Chaitanya Maharaj. I think he's coming back to KL on Sunday. I think he's giving the next class, but he's around in Malaysia as far as I am aware. So thank you very much. So I will see you on Saturday. Krishna willing, we'll continue our discussion on the Srimad Bhagavatam. Okay, thank you very much. Chaitanya Charitamrita ki jai, Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki jai, Shri Prabhupada ki jai, Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Thank you.
Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you.
Prabhuji.
Thank you.
Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Hare Bol, Shri Devi ji, Hare Krishna, Sudhir Sundar Prabhu, Archana ji, Sridhar ji and family, Rishikesh, Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Sachi Prema Mataji, Anand Sundari Mataji, Amit Prabhu, Sapna ji, Suraj, Shalini and family.
Prabhu, Hare Krishna.
Yes, Anand Sundari Mataji, Hare Bol.
Hare
Amit
Krishna,
and Priya as
Prabhuji.
well. Sapna ji, yes. Thank you. Thank you so much, everyone, for continuing to join and enthuse me. And I'll see you all on Saturday.